it's so hard with ADHD when we know we have something coming. It's almost like that time is dead. And I did have some requests come in for something that I was like, okay, I can work on this during that time. But it was like not long enough to get into deep focus work, just long enough to open up some tasks and mess them up and not be able to find where I left off. Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self-Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. We have another special guest that I'm so excited for you to meet. She's going to talk to us about something really special today. But first, I'll have Sally Crewe introduce herself. Welcome. Go ahead.
Hi, Jen.
Huh?
I'm, like you said, it's true. I'm Sally Crewe. I am a Texas-based English wizard. And I do a lot of stuff to do with tech and websites and design and things like that. That's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's actually partly how I met you. I met you in a program we were doing together, and Sally has this amazing program called Nurture Dash that I use for my hosting platform and my so many things, my podcast, my blog, all this stuff. But anyway, Sally's going to talk to us about something really special today in terms of creating or planning your day to match your energy. So I'm so pumped to have you. So tell us a little bit about, like, how did you get to this? Like, how did you get to this plan?
Well, I didn't realize at the time that I was in the ADHD club, but I did realize I was struggling horribly with what's now I know is called executive functioning, as in particular showing up with the same energy consistently, understanding how to break down tasks, understanding what to do first in what order. The funny thing was that if it was something that I was really into, like designing or music, you could not drag me away from my office.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I didn't need to eat, pee, sleep. Just like I was just like, let me at it,
right.
Which we now know
is hyper focus.
That's hyper focus, yeah. But the rest of the time, I couldn't really focus, and it actually really flared up. I did a little bit of VA work for a friend, and it started off great, as these things do with our condition. And the start of every project I did for her, I was out of the gate like a bull, like flying through things. And then as soon as the newness, that new car smell wore off,
the novelty, yeah,
I could not. It's like I couldn't. It's like I need glasses to see, but it's like my brain needed glasses. Like it really could not just get into it. So of course now we all know what that was about, but I didn't know at the time. So I was sort of driving myself a little crazy trying to figure out what to do. And I bought all the planners and I listened to all the podcasts. The closest thing that came to feeling like was something that made sense for me was the concept of time blocking, because I knew if the conditions were just right, I could really, really focus well. So I tried that, and it worked sometimes.
Yep.
And then it didn't work other times. And I was like, well, it's probably just because I'm not particularly into this particular task. Let me go do the other task that I was kicking ass at yesterday. And then on day 2, I couldn't get into that either. And I was like, what is going on? And I'm an investigator. I'm a research hound. So after much deliberation and note taking and stuff, I decided to sort of try and track, like almost like a food diary. Like I mean, I'm also a previous life, I'm a nutritionist as well. So you'd start clients off by,
what about you? That's really special.
Yeah, you'd start clients off keeping a food journal to be like,
totally.
What do you eat? When? Then what happens when you're at the bathroom? When does the stomachache start? And you piece it together like Sherlock Holmes. So I was like, I'll do that. I'll treat it like it's a stomach bug or something, or a food allergy, not a work allergy. So I did like a 3 to 5 day like work journal, tracking like what I was doing, how I felt about the task, how difficult the task was. And it was like a different person's brain showed up every day at a different time. Wow. So it really, really, I mean, I'm smart, I'm capable, I don't have imposter syndrome. in the traditional sense, but I had imposter syndrome when it came time to tell clients, here's when I can get this done by, because I didn't know which version of my brain was going to show up during the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's so hard.
Yeah, it would end up with all-nighters, of course, you know the old story. So anyway, I did this sort of detective work mapping, and I found something really, really fascinating, at least to me, was that I sort of saw a pattern, I saw a correlation between the times of the day that certain tasks were exciting and inspiring and therefore easy and get me in the zone. And then other times of day, I could not do that for all the tea in China, but I was pretty good at something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story long, I came up with these 5 little buckets that I put my tasks into based on the energy. And I came up with these 5 energy elements.
Ooh.
So
I love a good list. So,
yeah, so
I love a good framework. And so we're going to break this down. It's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have this all printed out, fancified. So I'll give you a link at the end to download it. But this is something I literally just did for myself.
Yeah, if you're comfortable sharing as a download, we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, so I already have it all together. So there's five zones that I came up with, and they seem to work pretty well. I've shared it with a few other students and stuff, and it seems to work well. So the first one is like the in the zone task, which is when you're in the creative zone, when you're focused, when you cannot pull yourself away, basically. This is the work that you're supposed to be doing, and it's work that only you can do, not because you don't have someone to help, but because it requires your specific, unique,
like
talent.
Us meeting on this podcast. Like my VA can't record the podcast.
Exactly. Like, and I always use the example of Steve Jobs from Apple. He still did those keynotes. He didn't have someone from his management team go do the sort of, here's the new iPod thing. Yeah. So that's the in the zone task. And I found personally that was something that I do great first thing in the morning.
Yep. I'm the same way. Totally.
Not so great the rest of the day. So for me, those in the zone tasks, my bucket included writing, planning, creative ideas, which, I mean, for me come all the time, but getting them into a form that makes sense, and writing and articulating it. For example, in the olden times, I would I deal with like support tickets and emergencies in the morning. And then I'd get around to little old me in the afternoon and try and do some email writing. And it would take me hours. Yeah. And it would be like, this isn't very good. Yeah. And then if I tried it first thing in the morning, I would get something really great done in 20 minutes.
That's amazing.
So that's kind of the philosophy. The next level, the next bucket was the worker bee bucket. So that's like the grunt work. That's the admin stuff. That's basically the stuff that if you had an assistant and they had the instructions, they could do that for you. It might be you right now. Yeah. But it's something that and I find that if I follow up my in the zone with the worker bee, like in the zone me dishes out all the tasks, and then she goes and has a break, and then worker bee me comes in.
And why did I leave myself? I'm going to answer those tickets now.
Yeah, and I'm sort of like not quite evacuated all of my creative juices. Right. That's so gross, but so to speak. And I'm actually then excited to put the pedal to the metal and actually let's build this thing. Yeah. Let's build it. So that works really well for me as a second task. Social, as an introvert and an empath and a highly sensitive personage, relationship building and tending has to be the right person, has to be usually just one person, and it has to be for a specific finite amount of time. Otherwise, I am toast. I find it really, really draining. So for me, that comes after lunch break, have a little socializing time. And then I have a recharge block. So recharging is anything else like rest, food, drink, going for a walk, meditating.
Yeah. That's very European of you to have an afternoon break.
I know. I'm so sophisticated.
I love it. I love it.
And then that was the fourth block. And the fifth one is the non-work commitment. So that's obligations outside of work. So these are quite obvious. Like, so in the zone is sort of CEO, entrepreneurial, creative stuff. Worker bee is the admin stuff. Social is, that can, there's some overlap. Like worker bee could be writing emails, social could be writing emails.
Yeah,
There
just
is
depending
overlap.
on how you experience it, I would
Yes.
think, right? Like,
Yeah.
so some of our listeners might be like, well, actually, writing an email is not a creative task for me. That is worker bee all the way. And
Yeah,
I will
exactly.
delegate that as soon as possible.
That's the thing. It's
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
And for me, social needs to be followed up with a recharge block,
yeah. Well,
because as an
yeah.
introvert, it drains me. I've got friends who are extroverts and they need that to recharge themselves. They need to socialize.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, like maybe even in the morning, if we have a listener who's got ADHD and they are more of an extrovert, maybe their first thing they need to do is a meeting. Like this morning, I had a meeting
yes,
at 10 and it was great. I'm so grateful for that person. But I was like, oh, I need to schedule meetings later because I like it was enjoyable. It's not like bad, it's just takes more
it
energy.
takes a lot of spoons,
It
doesn't it?
takes a lot of spoons. And
And
so,
I
yeah,
always, I have my calendar available. I get up really early, but I have my meeting zone between 11 and 3, because if
yeah,
it needs me after 3,
yeah,
you know,
that's a really good point. I can be kind of shot after that.
yeah. And I also find with clients also that they hit the wall in terms of, because most of my meetings are to do with showing them how to do tech stuff.
Oh, right.
And
So
I
that's
see the
like,
mist
yeah,
descend.
it's a good point. Yeah.
So yeah, the non-work commitments is things outside of work. It could be watching. I've said I'll watch a movie with my husband.
Oh, yeah.
So it can cross over with recharging. However, if other people come over, or the movie watching is with somebody else
Then
who's a
that's
little
not
bit more
recharging
draining,
anymore.
then it's not recharging anymore, and then it needs a recharge block after it. So anyway,
Wow.
that's the basic
Ah.
gist of it. I found that was like the secret formula, the instructional manual for myself that nobody had provided me with.
Which is just beautiful. I mean, it's just awesome that you were able to figure that out, and
I like I appreciate that. I'm trying to get better at receiving compliments. And one of my big core drivers is autonomy as a
yeah.
person, and I think we all have the right to self-leverage, meaning like we have the right to make our businesses work for us, even if that looks weird,
Yes.
even if it's taking a nap at 2 o'clock every day. I don't
Well,
care.
and
That's what I do.
it's one of the things I talk a lot about in my programs and with my clients is, and even here on the podcast, is like society wasn't designed for our ADHD.
No.
And so we have a choice. We can mask the hell out of ourselves and try and fit what I call our beautiful star pegs into round holes and be exhausted from the forcing and the masking and all that. Or we can design our own ADHD life
Mm-hmm.
and be like, hey, what works for me?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
and I've certainly done that in my private practice. I see clients from 10 to 7, and that works for me because in the morning, then I get to do things like exercise, meditate,
Yeah.
do a gratitude journal
Yeah.
because I need that in the morning so I can feel more grounded and present. Whereas someone else is like, that schedule is my worst nightmare,
Right.
and
Right.
but it's like knowing our ADHD. And what I like about this is it's not just it takes it a step further into really assessing your energy, like taking some time to create a little, maybe not even a little, but an energy diary to track what
Yeah.
works for you.
Well, that's really just like this kind of a couple more steps to it. So that's like the first one is to
Oh,
just
this
kind
is
of,
just the first step. Oh
oh
my
yeah,
gosh, I'm so
hold on to your
pumped.
hats, because yeah, this is
Okay.
just sort of how do you figure out, you do the 3 to 5 days of kind of the journal and figure out what the patterns are. Not the same every
Oh,
day, but that was what I generally figured out. And of course, you've got like hormone cycles, the moon, seasons, weather, family, noise, all those things play in as well. But this for me was sort of a safe enough bet that first thing whatever time I get up, first thing is for me is
Got
the in
it.
the zone stuff.
Yeah, because it's got to be flexible, right? If we've got
Yeah,
ADHD, our ADHD doesn't look the same every single day.
exactly. And also neither, if you're in business, chances are you've got customers. That's the idea. So you will have to, sometimes I do have to jump out of bed and the shower and the meditation and go put out a fire.
Yeah.
And then I'm in no mood to meditate and get
Create.
creative. So
Yeah.
that day is kind of, okay, now we're just going to stay in firefighter mode today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is about this is it gives you the self-awareness to, once you've started tracking it, you become really aware of it. So I made a little list here so I didn't forget the benefits. But basically what you do when you're tracking is that you just kind of go through a few days, and whenever you start a task, you write it down, you put what time of day. It doesn't have to be like the specific time, but just like early morning, mid-morning, late morning, after
Got
lunch, blah, blah, blah,
Got you.
And then after doing it for a few days, the pattern emerges. So the benefits of doing it are, once you've got it going, it stacks the world in your favor. It's like checking the weather. Like if you saw it was going to snow, you'd be like, okay, well, it's probably not the best day to go for a ride in my convertible to the beach.
Right.
Maybe I'll go sledding instead.
Right.
It's just like that. So it's almost like your internal energetic weather report that and people look at astrology to check what phase Jupiter's in, but they don't think to check their own phases.
That's fascinating. You're right. Or what phase the moon is in, or especially if Mercury's in retrograde.
Yeah, it's a legit thing.
Yeah, no, I know.
But yeah, those phases all do overlap as well, and I'm way big into those kinds of things, but this is really the main one that has the most, of course it has the most impact on you. It's you, your brain, your body, your energy.
Yeah, it's like being your own North Star.
Exactly. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it stacks things in your favor. It removes as much resistance. So you go with the flow. You make it easy on yourself, and you end up actually being more productive. I'm a bit allergic to that word, but it does actually.
Yeah.
It allows you to harness that focus-driven mode.
Right. Well, and I think with the word productive, just to name it too, like, okay, yes, we are more than what we produce. Like,
yes,
for sure. Our value is not what we produce. And if we're an entrepreneur, we have to be productive. Like, it's like,
yeah, we have to produce stuff.
Yeah, we have to produce stuff. And so I think that word gets tricky when people tie their value into it. And more like, okay, we have to be productive, but like, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's not like a moral judgment if you were not.
Yeah. And it's not like a race to be the most productive, because it does depend on what you're producing. If you're producing absolute crap,
right. Well,
then please keep that to yourself and produce less.
Well, right. And that's exactly true. Like, a lot of times I've noticed when I'm not feeling in a super grounded place, if I were to write a blog post right then, it's crap, because it comes from forcing. It doesn't come from connected to something bigger. It doesn't come from my highest self. It's just like this forced thing to be productive and get it done.
Yeah. Or it takes way longer.
Or it takes way
more difficult. And I find my little canary in the coal mine for myself when I'm done for the day is when I start unpicking my work. Like I start going back to the design and being like, oh, I'm not sure about that. And that's now I know myself well enough now to be like, that means it's break time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But otherwise you'd keep going and you'd keep chasing your tail.
Yeah. No, it's true. For me, I know it's break time when I pick up my phone and all of a sudden I'm like, why do I have my phone in my hand? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes I even get to opening like social media and then I'm like, oh, whoa, I really need a break now.
I really got to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I notice fidgeting, which I do fidget anyway, because I have ADHD, the hyperactive kind. But I notice if I can't get comfortable, that's my indicator. It's very somatic for me.
Yeah. But as you know, as a somatic therapist, awareness is the key to all.
That's true. Awareness is the base of it. If you, if you don't catch yourself doing it, then you won't know that you need to shift gears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this also reduces decision fatigue, which I had.
Yeah. Say more about that. Say more about what you think of when you say decision fatigue so people know
Well,
what we're talking about. Like, I know what you mean.
for me, the biggest problem I got into was getting to a point of overwhelm.
Mhm.
And that came from, I realized I only have so many, go back to the spoons thing, I only had so many spoons worth of decisions that I could make, because decision making is kind of a high process task for
It
us.
is.
And I've read these stories about like Obama having
Same shirt,
one color suit, one color shirt. Yeah.
except for the tan
Back
shirt.
to Steve Jobs again, black polo
Yeah.
neck. And it's like reduce the decisions, and then because we're all only human, even if we're amazing, we're all only human, and we only have so many credits to spend on these various things.
Yeah.
So the end part of this is for me to show you how this ties into what I do every morning, which reduces the decision fatigue. So I don't have to keep asking myself, what should I do next? What do I feel like doing? What should I on that argument with myself, like, well, I really need to do this, but I really don't want to do that. I kind of want to do this. Should I do that? It's just crazy making. So I get all of that arguing with myself done
Yeah.
in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
the mapping of the tasks is done in a specific way that kind of makes it obvious.
yeah. That's awesome. I'm excited to hear about it.
So yeah, decision fatigue, overwhelm. It's really helpful with more accurate planning, because you're able to more easily predict how long something will take once you start doing it under the same energetic conditions.
Yes.
Instead of like, how long will this take me? Well, if I'm on fire, it'll take me 20 minutes. Otherwise, it's going to probably take a couple years.
Right. Right. Well, and that also helps with time blindness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's the thing that a lot of us struggle with is we're like, I don't know how long something takes.
Exactly. So
And
if you show up in the same energetic part of the day to do the same type of task that you already know that's the best task for you right now, then that's going to increase your consistency, which is going to make you way more confident about estimates,
deadlines.
going to help reduce stress around deadlines, commitments, etc. It's also a really good safety net against burnout. Well, just in terms of working back to the nutrition analogy, you know that you need certain amounts of different nutrients.
Yes.
You will not drop dead tomorrow if you eat pizza all day today.
Right.
But if and I'm not actually sure how long it will take. I'm not that kind of
But if you ate,
nutritionist.
but if you ate pizza every single day for like
you would
50
at some point
years.
get some kind of nutrient deficiency.
Yes.
So I think this gives, for me at least, gives me, as a former people pleaser and an empath and a highly sensitive person, this gives me a way to make sure I get my recommended daily allowance of recharge energy.
Yeah.
I also get my recommended daily allowance of inspired creative work that makes me feel good. And I also get my recommended daily allowance of getting actual shit done.
Yeah.
Which means my clients aren't going to be mad at me for not getting stuff done.
Right. Yeah.
So, and yeah, just makes you more aware. So it's almost like these are the blocks. Doesn't matter what time, how long those blocks are. I read somewhere that, normal people with normal non-ADHD brains have 2 to 3 90-minute blocks of focus a day. And I average out about that.
Okay.
It depends. If I'm working on a website or a record, I will have a 3-week block of focus.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I'm working on something I don't want to do, I'll have a 10-minute block of focus.
That's what I noticed too. It's like if I really want to do something, I can focus for a very long time.
With these 5 energy element types, so 2 of non-work and recharging are not work related, but recharging is important, and you often will forget to schedule that in. And the other 3, or 2 of the other 3, need doing. So it makes sure that the things that need to be done get done, and it also makes sure that you are doing some good adulting and self-care
right inside of that,
which would prevent burnout.
That makes sense.
We're not very good at tracking our macronutrients when it comes to
I think that's fair. That's fair.
So there's some bigger benefits as well, which obviously we've talked about increases self-awareness. I found it increased self-compassion quite a lot, because I was like, well, why are you not able to do this? Oh, well, we're out of work at B time now. We should be in social time.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a little kid. It's time for your nap.
Yeah. That makes sense too. And then it interrupts the narrative that we've gotten from other people growing up about why aren't you, and the shame. It kind of interrupts that.
Yeah, why can't you do this? Why can't
Right.
you do this right now?
Right. You did
It
it
also
before.
it strengthens your boundaries with yourself and with other people.
Right. Because if
Which,
you're like, that is just not a good time for me to have a
yeah.
meeting.
All right. Yeah, I'm not going to have a meeting. Like I said, my calendar is just not, I'm not available outside of those times unless I'm, someone's in a different country and there's a special circumstance.
Right.
But I've done that for their benefit as much as mine. And to be able to be like, yeah, I can do up to 2 meetings a day.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm just a shell.
I get that.
It increases self-trust and self-concept. So, because I know, that you're more likely to be able to do what you said you're going to do by the time you've said you were going to do it by, because now you can time track accurately. And now
Yes.
well, if this is going to take me, based on my data, it's going to take me 4 hours, and I'm going to have 4 of that type of work focus block between now and Friday. So I'll tell them the deadline that I'll have it to them on Monday.
Yeah.
And it suddenly becomes that thing that everyone could always do that I couldn't do, which is, well, next step, just break it down into little tasks. And I'd be like,
Right. What?
How? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
You've
don't
come across goblin.tools, by the way, right? Did I?
know.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Everyone listening knows I'm obsessed with this. So goblin.tools, it's AI. And I'm not going to break it down because I've broken it down before. I mean, there's all these different things it can do, but you can say like, break down the steps for, or record a podcast or create a podcast. And then you can say how neurospicy you are. So if you're super ADHD or whatever, then you put it there, and then it'll break down the task depending on that. But the key is you can't look at the whole list all at the same time, because then our ADHD brains will get overwhelmed.
Right. Right.
But there's other things to it, like, how long does it take to clean out a cat litter box? And it will tell you how long, like how long it thinks.
That's great, because these are things that the things we do all the time, but we don't. We're like, how long was I doing this?
Yeah, we have no idea. But then there's also one that, I mean, there's another piece of it that's like, it kind of helps you rephrase things. So how do I say this in a less offensive way? Or how do I say this in a more professional context? Right. Or
I would need the more assertive.
Yeah. But there's all these.
I'm good with the friendly.
Options.
I'd need the more assertive one.
But then there's the one too where like you can run stuff through, like, how would this come off if I said this?
Right.
And then AI is like, that would come off as kind of bossy. Like,
I wish they built this into a lot of my customers' email tools.
Right.
When they call us. Yeah.
Right. Just like create a filter. But anyway, I was just thinking about, we don't know how long things take. And we were talking about some of that. And I was like, OMG, have to tell you about goblin.tools. Because for anyone listening, if you haven't tried it, it's free. It's just like, I don't know.
That sounds amazing. I'm going to definitely check it out.
Yeah. It's a rabbit hole though. So do it when you have time to just like.
So yeah, I have one more thing on my internal bigger benefit list, which is increases awareness of the other cycles of nature.
The sun, say more about that, because I jam.
When the sun's highest in the sky in the middle of the day, it's, for me, if I haven't already got my creative in the zone stuff done, it'll be tomorrow, or it might be really late tonight.
Really?
Also the cycles of the moon, the seasons, how you relate to them, and that increases your connectedness to your body, to nature, to the environment, and optionally to any whatever spiritual system, belief, path you're involved with. I think it's just a really good, it's like, who would have thought tracking your energy tasks for work would give you a stronger connection to spirit? But
but it does. Well, and I have a couple I have a couple things. I have a question, but I also have a comment too, that before my question, which is that I think for women too, tracking your menstrual cycle with it.
That's a huge part of it as well.
Because we know with ADHD, I think it's like 46% of women with ADHD also meet criteria for PMDD, the premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or however you say it, whatever. But basically have very extreme symptoms that come along with their period. And so like including that in the tracking too, because I've got some clients who they joke, they're like, they come into a session and they're just like, I just can't get anything done and I'm crying. And I'm like, isn't your period coming up in a couple days? And they're like, how in the heck do you know that? I'm like, well, it feels like it was about a month ago when you said the same shit.
I've noticed, I've been tracking the moon. I do this business by the moon thing. And I've noticed, and I've been doing it kind of in a vague, okay, full moon is good for releasing things. New moon is good for starting things.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. But I've got really deep into it, like the crescents and the gibbuses and all that stuff.
Ooh, okay.
The crazy witchy stuff. And I've noticed, and this month was the first time I actually applied what I've learned, which was the dark moon, which is 3 days before the new moon.
Okay.
When the moon just disappeared. I am a shell. Really? I am just like no good to anybody, and all I can do is really rest. So I did that this time around. I had it on my calendar. I was like, don't book anything, don't have any deadlines, rest. I told my husband, I said, I'm dark mooning.
Dark mooning.
I'm dark mooning. Like, I'm just gonna sort of lounge around and be on my dog's schedule of just like napping and reading and meditating. And sure enough, 3 days, and then I was reborn. I slowly, my energy built up. I get really energetic around full moon, and then it goes back down. I've got friends who are the reverse. They get loads of energy around new moon and get drained around full moon.
Really?
So if you want to track that, that's a really fascinating, and it's really, really powerful. Like it seems crazy to me that anyone runs a business without looking at how that cycle affects you, because it does. And it affects other people as well.
Right. Yeah. Right. Who are coming to your business. Well, and I can't help but wonder, we're the light that attracts people to us. I mean, there's a good chance we will attract people who are similar to us. Not always. I'm sure there's some people that we have in our ecosystems of clients who experience the opposite of the moon than we do. But also we probably have a lot of people who experience it similarly. And so that
I've found I have a lot that do the opposite. And I think it's almost like a relationship, like we kind of fill each other.
Oh, like you
feel maybe I was in a very sociable, teaching, giving, nurturing phase when they most needed it.
Ah, that's interesting.
Just a thought. I don't know. I'll do some experiments and get back to you.
That's exciting. So yeah, that was actually the question I had, was how does this look different for some people? Because I know I've got some clients who their best work time is at night.
I used to consider myself a night owl, and I'm flipped over to, night owl to early bird. It's all dark, alone time. It doesn't really matter. Can I just go off tangent for 1 second?
Yeah.
The Gremlins movie.
Yeah.
And they said, don't feed Gizmo after midnight. I sat there as a little 8-year-old being like, it's always after midnight. It's always,
oh my gosh, it always is after
your cutoff point when it was okay again. It's always
right, because it's always after midnight. Like once midnight hits, you're permanently after midnight. What a brilliant little lady you were.
So the flow of the day, what tasks fall under each energy type is completely different for everyone. How you get your energy, introvert, extrovert, impacts of neurospiciness, impacts of being a highly sensitive or an empath, practical implications, physical health, emotional health, menstrual situation, family commitments, living situation, environment, weather, moon cycles, times of the month, year, different life stages, hormones, empty nest, pregnant, yada yada yada. And if you know this, that if you get this dialed in that works for you, and then suddenly you're like, what happened? I'm starting to suck, like I can't do this. The first thing you do is you go and recalibrate and track it, because something's changed. And that saved me so many times from like personal despair of thinking I was doing so well, and then I felt like you have a wave of doing something, being really consistent, and then suddenly you fall. And you beat yourself up and you go in a shame spiral. This is like, oh no, I'm actually fine. It's just my energy tracking schedule's a little bit off.
Yeah. I've noticed that with perimenopause. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to shift how I do things because
Yeah.
my brain functions differently now. My ADHD symptoms or traits, I prefer traits because I don't think it's a diagnosis.
I like
Um,
traits. Yeah.
I know I'm a clinical social worker and yes, I have to use those diagnoses, but I really prefer recognizing neurodivergences as that instead of pathologicals. But as far as traits, I noticed my traits were much more spicy as I started perimenopause. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I used to be able to focus a lot better than this.
Well, I didn't even realize
Yeah.
I was until then.
Yeah. And then you're
A
like,
couple of years
oh,
ago.
but it's fascinating. And you're right. It's so much about giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and
Mhm.
trusting that whatever's happening, you'll figure out. It's like,
Yeah, and
oh,
also
okay, this isn't working anymore. I'll try
and
something
just
different.
knowing, like, as entrepreneurs and like not people who are like doing it full time and very serious about it, we do all the trainings and we learn from all
Yep.
the gurus, mostly not neurodivergent,
Right. No, I got that.
or they, even if they're not men and they're women and they happen to be sort of a driven personality.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I'm reading a book about high sensitive leadership right now, and it's been like,
Mm.
I don't know.
That's
I'll
okay.
send it to you.
That's fine. I'm
I
always
don't
like,
remember.
ooh, I'm going to add that to my Goodreads because,
Yeah, it's
anyway.
really good. It was one of those samples on Amazon, and I get the gist, and then I don't buy them. This one, I was like,
Oh, cool.
three
Good to
pages
know.
in, I need this. Yeah.
Good to know.
So that's a big difference. Like it's as big as the introvert extrovert thing.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so yeah, let me just tell you how to actually use this data.
Weave mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, every morning you list everything that you need to, you do a brain dump, you list everything
Yep.
you need to do and
Yep.
anything that's floating around in your head taking up valuable precious space.
Yep.
This is what I do. I mark each item with a color, or you can use a symbol, or you can use arrows, but basically I have in the zone I have as red, worker bee as yellow, social as
Okay.
blue, green as recharging, and non-work as purple or pink, depending what pens are lying around.
Yeah.
And then you decide which item in each group. So you've got the tasks, you've sort of herded them into the right pens.
Okay.
And then you decide which item in each group is the most important, and you put a one next to it. And then you go through and you put a two next to the second important. And then you go
Got
through.
it. Okay. So then you rank them.
You rank them. I just do three. Maybe if they're really small tasks and you know that you're going to be able to knock them out, you maybe do five. But
Yeah. 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 It
I
depends.
try and stick with 1 to 3. And then, once you know which type of task to start your day with, you basically suddenly have a schedule. You're like, okay, well, I know I do in the zone, worker bee, social. Those are my order for work. And then sometimes worker bee again, depending if I'm behind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, now I know I'm doing task 1 now from this
Yeah.
column, task 2.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for about 4 years.
And it's working well?
Yeah.
That's amazing. This
Yeah.
is such a wonderful framework for people. And I get a lot of questions. And I mean, I can share like what I do, but this is so much broader in terms of just considering those energy levels and everything that impacts it, right? Like,
Yeah, and it's just a framework. I mean, it's
yeah,
designed, the way it's designed is, here's how I do it, here's the basic ingredients, but make it work for yourself.
well, yeah,
And
because
keep adjusting it. And it's not like a rigid system.
right, because I also wonder, like, you've got these nice 5 elements or energy levels or energy types, I should say, like, the in the zone, the worker bee, the relational one. But I wonder if someone else might even find, like, as they look at their
Oh, yeah.
data, they don't have those same 5 categories.
They might not at all. Or, I've already touched on the fact that they might have things be under different archetypes.
Yeah, exactly.
They're really archetypes, I guess.
Yeah, they are. They are.
But yeah, you could have, I mean, I'm not a parent, but if I were, I would
Right.
definitely have another whole category there.
Totally. Well, I find that my clients that have kids, what gets really hard is they get interrupted a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's really hard to get themselves to focus for any length of time if their kids are around, and like I work with some single moms. And so it's just like, I mean, during the summer in particular, when the children aren't in school, and if they're a single parent, a lot of times they can't necessarily afford to just shove them off into daycare or something. I mean, I want to say shove, but
no expensive fancy summer camp.
Yeah, there's no right. And so then it's like, how do we find this? And to me, I'm like, get up early or stay up late. But you're right. Those buckets will change or archetype.
I mean, there's a potential for sort of shame for people who don't have the time to do the meditation in the morning or whatever. But even if you can only do a 5-minute breathing exercise while you're on the toilet or in the shower.
Right. Yeah.
It's just to hit that nutrient. It's like, okay, you can't have the real nutritious meal, but you can take the vitamin.
Yeah. I know you're English based. You're originally.
So you can get back to the recommended daily allowance at least. And it's sort of training you to be like, I need and deserve, and I'm going to take one recharge block, one blah, blah, blah. And I bookend my day with self-care versions of the recharge block.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah. I've just done those basic categories, but there's other ones,
Yeah. Well, and what I like about this is it's flexible, because for me, I actually plan better the night before, but if I wake up and have a low energy day, then my plan shifts, but I actually do better. I sleep better if writing the tasks out at night.
I have actually done this in the evening as well, especially if I've been like in a position to have a nice early night.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, okay, I'll do my brain dump before bed and then do the thing. And then that's great. And another little hack for me is to put the most important thing on a post-it on my computer screen.
Yep. I haven't done it for today because I've had.
So I don't forget. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a note card that I put my top tasks on every day. I haven't filled it out yet because I've had all meetings this morning. Yeah. So at any rate, yeah, I mean, I think this could even be split up. Like I could see myself doing the task dumping at night, which is kind of what I do anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it really means
what you need. Yeah.
It's just a case of making it work for you.
Right. Or for me at the end of my workday.
I originally started doing it. So I'd sit with my notebook and dump out all the things I needed to do. And then I'd get out of the bath, and then I'd waltz into my office and I'd feel fantastic. Like I'd been to a spa and I knew exactly what to do.
That's awesome. I've got a client who has a hard time getting themselves to do their morning plan or whatever. I'm going to recommend bath storming to them.
Yeah.
Because they would totally go for that.
It's good. There's something about it. It does, because often I find a bath at night would just put me out.
Yeah.
Whereas in the morning, it's sort of if you struggle with anxiety or anything, or if you're achy, it's really nice, and it starts the day on your terms.
Right. Well, and you can put some essential oils in there, depending on.
Yeah. So try and get your cat to take notes. He normally falls asleep on the job, but it's great. It's like, take that me time wherever you can.
That's lovely. I really like that, Sally. I like that idea. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I really, what I like about this whole framework too, like I said, it's really flexible, but it invites people to get mindful about their own experience and then tailor things to themselves. Because with ADHD, and whether you are diagnosed, undiagnosed, self-diagnosed, ADHD adjacent, whatever you want to call yourself, there's something for you here. Yeah. There's something for you here. And it's kind of like, when I recommend people read a book, I'm like, take the pieces that work. If you're like, I don't really care about Jupiter, then don't care about Jupiter, but maybe like, I don't know, I'm going to tell you the moon stuff is real. The moon stuff is real for me. Yeah. And for sure, I notice as a therapist, and I know you as a tech person notice
and for the tides.
Yeah.
Like the moon is like the moon. The moon moves things around. We can't deny that.
Oh, yeah, we know it moves things around. But then even like, y'all don't have to believe in this, but I will tell you, being a mental health professional and Sally working in tech, the Mercury retrograde thing is real. Like,
My mum worked for social services in the UK,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they around full moon time, same with people
Und
in emergency rooms. Yeah,
it's undeniable. It's
yeah.
undeniable how it impacts people. And so
All these
e
werewolves running around, it's terrifying.
werewolves. Exactly. Yeah, but in all honesty, getting, figuring out what you need to track for yourself. And
Yeah.
and for people who get overwhelmed with ADHD, because that's something it's like, oh, now I gotta track all this stuff. I mean, what would you recommend they start with? Like just even like one thing that they could start tracking, like their energy maybe, or
Yeah, I would, I would just do it naturally. So the next time, because this is kind of how it started for me, the next time you're sitting down to do something and it either feels really good and easy and in flow, make a note of it.
yeah, I like
And
that.
conversely, if you're really, really on the struggle bus, make a note of it. You can build up the case. You don't have to do like the whole 3-day thing of consistent tracking. Just do it as you go through your day. And if there's some kind of emotional charge, negative or positive, around something, take the data and then make sure that then you'll be able to avoid that happening again.
I like that. I like that a lot because for a lot of us, it can be like, oh, now I got one more thing to
Yeah,
do,
yeah,
and it's like, I don't have the energy to do that. But that is actually kind of what I do. I'm like, well, I'm not feeling very focused now. So, I'm like,
yeah.
like
And then,
after, for example, after I had my meeting this morning and I had about 45 minutes until we were going to meet. And I did a little TikTok on dead time because it's so hard with ADHD when we know we have something coming. It's almost
yeah,
like that time is dead. And I did have some requests come in for something that I was like, okay, I can work on this during that time. But it was like not long enough to get into deep focus work, just long enough to open up some tasks and mess them up and not be able to find where I left off.
right. And or to like, we do. I think my husband's a little bit on the ADHD tip
Uh-huh.
slightly.
Uh-huh.
He's sort of self-identified a bit, but he's very organized, very different thing. But it's sort of, if we've got 3 minutes till we have to leave, he'll find a 4-minute task to do, and we'll be late. And that's just how the brain wants to
I can
use
run
all
like
the
that
time,
sometimes.
because time feels so precious
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
scarce. But with time blindness, it's really difficult to figure out the mapping this whole thing, and tying it in with the seasons even, has been
Mhm.
helpful to me, because time blindness to me is not just about the minutes and the hours. It's the months, it's the years.
Yeah. When you say it's the years, it's funny you say that. It reminds me of this is kind of going a little bit off the rails, but it reminds me I was at I think it was like the 50th wedding anniversary of my grandpa's brother and his wife. So Faye and Adele, because we would always call
Right.
them the farmer and Adele. The farmer and Adele, anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. But anyway, we were at their 50th wedding anniversary and I think I was like in high school or something and I was of an age to at least think to ask this question. I was like, how do you do it? Like, how do you do 50 years with the same human? Like, how do you do that? Right. It's probably no surprise that I asked that as an adolescent and I choose not to be married. But anyway, but what they said to me was, well, there's good decades and bad decades, and you just learn to find your way through it all because you decide you want to be together because you love each
Right.
other. And I was
Right.
like, a bad decade? Like, that's
Okay.
a long ass period of time.
You're like,
I don't,
that's why half marriages fail, because they start statistically, half of the marriage would start on a good decade and half of them
uh-huh.
would start on a bad one.
Right. Right. I don't know if like certainly by bad decade, they didn't mean they were abusive to each other. It just
No,
meant
but
they weren't
just
in flow or sync or something. But
less than
yeah.
amazing.
So I want
Yeah.
to be clear as a complex trauma therapist, I'm not encouraging anyone to stay in a relationship that's abusive. But it just, it reminds me, you said like paying attention to the flow of like the seasons and the years
Yeah.
and maybe even the decades.
There
Like,
are there are patterns, and I don't know if it's a neurodivergent thing or if it's specific to uh women from Sherwood Forest, but I seek patterns in everything, and there's always like a
yeah, there's
reflection
always
of something
patterns
in
in
nature.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. there are patterns. I love patterns because I'm a former, I guess once a mathematician, always a mathematician, but my undergrad is math. And so patterns were my thing,
Yeah.
right? Like I love to find patterns and work on patterns and solve problems and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but you're right, there are patterns and things, and it's a matter of seeing them. But what I like that you said is if you're looking to get started with this, you can just notice the extremes for now. Like,
Yeah, the extremes will do it. That's really
yeah,
all you need to, because to be honest, for me, the extremes are the social is one extreme in terms of that will absolutely my battery.
yeah,
Solitude and creativity will charge it up. So if
yeah,
I am in a situation where I don't have access to one of those to offset the other,
yeah.
I'll kind of spin out.
You'll
So
spin out. And then it's about giving yourself permission to take what you need. Like I
yeah,
have a long list of things I need to do today, but I also know as much as I love talking with Sally and much as I love my first meeting, I'm going to need a break. Like,
yeah,
and so we
yeah.
give ourselves permission for that instead of shaming ourselves, maybe like we would have been done in school.
It also helps you push through. Like if I have a social thing or a work or a worker bee thing that goes
Yeah.
on a bit longer than my designated time, but I know I've got
A
something
break
coming up.
coming.
Yeah, then it's sort of like a self-parenting.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
In 20 minutes, Sally, you're going to have a break.
yeah, right. I also do this thing now where I actually have a sort of a reward at the end of the week.
Oh,
It's just I sort of window shop. I don't do social media anymore, so for
yeah,
my
yeah.
for my fun time, I window shop on Etsy and put things in my cart.
Ooh, that's fun.
Never buy them, but just like let the coupons fly towards me.
You let the coupons fly towards you. That's kind
Yeah,
of fun. Yeah, I
but
noticed that now. Coupons on Etsy. I never knew that was a thing, but all of a sudden I keep getting them. I'm like, where's this? What's happening here? So that's kind of fun. But yeah, very cool. Well, awesome. Sally, this has just been so enlightening and it really breaks it down for people in a way that people can make it their own. And so I
good.
really,
Yeah.
really, really appreciate you sharing this framework today. And thanks for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Yeah.
been great fun, and I have all of this stuff available. I'll package it together as a download that
Yeah.
people can grab.
So if people want to find you, I believe your website is
Yes.
sherpa.com. Is that
Yes.
right? And we'll put
Sherpa,
that in
yeah,
the
Sherpa, not sherbet.
yeah,
Sherpa.
Sherpa.
Yeah.
Sherpa. Yeah, yeah, which I think is so cool. Like, I just think that's awesome. It's kind of a struggle because between your British accent and my Minnesotan accent, no one's going to know what you're saying.
I've
So I'll
actually I
put it in
said
the
that
show
because
notes.
I've had people say website sherbet. I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
that's
name
what
of
I called it. That's what my business is.
yeah, of course.
Of course. It's so funny. So if people want to find you, they could go to the website sherpa.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
And from there, there's links to all my other little brands. I have Nurture Dash, as you mentioned,
Yeah,
which
Nurture
is
Dash
kind
is
of a
amazing. I just have to
course.
give a little plug for Nurture Dash. I know that's not why you're here, but like, I think I'm your top fan. I might not be, but I'm obsessed with Nurture Dash. Nurture Dash. So I was a Kajabi user for 3 years, and Nurture Dash is better. It offers all the stuff Kajabi did, but in a way that makes sense for my brain. But if you're looking for like an all-in-one platform, but with real humans, like people that care about your business. It's a small business. We would be supporting when you do Nurture Dash, you're supporting a woman in small business, which is Sally, who has
We
like,
plant trees every
yeah, they
month.
plant tree. I know I had trees planted because I got Nurture Dash. It was so cool. I was like, oh, that's so special. So, if you're looking for a course hosting platform, I can't recommend Nurture Dash enough. That's not why we're here.
Thanks, Jen.
But I just want to say, like, I just am a huge fan. And there's a learning curve with anything, but I found the learning curve for Nurture Dash was less than with Kajabi. And they're
Yeah,
always developing things, is
I'm
what's
actually going to start doing Wednesday sort of tech Sherpa sessions.
ooh,
Show
fun.
people how to do things, because it's one thing to have everything listed as here's what you do, but there's another is like here's a way to use this in your business to do this
Yeah.
thing.
That's so cool. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to sign up. And that's included in our membership, right?
Yeah.
See,
Yep.
that's all the extra stuff you get. It's amazing. So anyway, I know that's not why we're here, but I just want to say, like, that's how one of the ways I know Sally, and I just had to share because I'm such a huge fan. So, all right. So the website sherpa.com. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here on
Yeah,
Earth.
of course. Of course. You too. You too.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
So if you're listening, I want to just thank you for tuning into this episode. Make sure you follow if you're not following yet. Check out the show notes for all the goodies. Sally's going to share her little handout, which is so cool. I shouldn't call it little because it's powerful. It's like petite, it's like small but fierce handout.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, it's so fierce. And so we'll share that. And then again, make sure you follow and please share. So, all right, catch our next episode and take care.